Welcome to Optily Radio, your regular 30-minute dose of everything you need to accelerate your e-commerce marketing success.
Hi there, and welcome to the final episode of our second season. We've had some amazing guests on throughout this year, so make sure you listen back if you've missed any episodes. To wrap up 2022, we've got Gen Furukawa in the virtual studio with us. Gen is the co-founder of Prehook, a leading quiz platform for Shopify merchants. Gen has been in e-commerce for over 10 years, with the last 7 years in e-commerce SaaS. Prior to Prehook, he was part of the founding team and VP of marketing at Jungle Scout, the leading software for Amazon sellers. And from the Optily team, we have Kevin Stagg with us again. Kevin is our Chief Marketing and Customer Officer who brings a wealth of experience from working at both B2C and B2B brands, big and small, including international companies like Microsoft and Ding. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks so much, Nina. Thanks for having me.
Great to be here as always. And hey, again, how are you? How's life treating?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Kevin. Yeah, this will be good. It'll be, early November, so Black Friday ramping up. So hopefully this will add a lot of tactical advice and ideas for brands.
Yeah, and we love that mix of tactical kind of short-term pieces and strategic long-term. So this will be a great quick win, and we'll hear so much more about your service shortly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So why don't you get started by telling us a little bit about yourself, how it is you came into the world of e-commerce, and the road that led you to Prehook.
Yeah, sure. So like you mentioned, I'm a co-founder of Prehook, which is a quiz platform for Shopify merchants. And I actually met my co-founders. They were also part of the founding team at Jungle Scout. So in 2015, selling on Amazon was definitely in the early stages where private labeling was a great opportunity. There wasn't as much competition maybe as there is now. So we joined right when founder Greg Mercer was rolling out the Chrome extension into a SaaS product. And so Jungle Scout basically helped people find products to sell on Amazon and scale them. So we worked together, my co-founders and I, for about 4 years at Jungle Scout. It was a fantastic job, opportunity, and we loved working together. We always did, though, want to build our own SaaS and kind of launch and grow from scratch. And we decided that there was an opportunity in Shopify, so we shifted from Amazon to Shopify. And the challenges that merchants face are different, those on Amazon and those on Shopify. Namely, an Amazon seller is really focused on search optimization, that Amazon is largely a search engine. So people will go to a store to say, I want to find a blue water bottle for kids or whatever widget you're looking for. Shopify merchants have a different challenge because even if it is one SKU, the way that the shopper is looking for the product or what challenges they're trying to solve aren't quite as known because you don't have that search query to build your marketing around. So we realized after speaking with merchants, even just a few questions could completely change how you're going to merchandise a product both on site and then subsequently afterwards by email and SMS and kind of like the benefits that you're putting forward, the features, and how you're positioning your brand to get them from where they currently are to where they're going. So we started building it right when the pandemic was kind of like clamping us down in the house in spring of 2020. And ended up launching in early 2021. So now we have hundreds of brands that are using a quiz to improve their conversion rate by simplifying the buying process, accelerating their list growth, both email and SMS, because often that's kind of like the play of it. Hey, where can we send you this information now that we know a little bit more about you? And lastly, the zero-party data, like learning more about what customers are, their challenges, their goals, their habits, their preferences. All these things previously have not been accessible to merchants. A lot of it might have been you have to rely on inferences or assumptions based on what products they've purchased or what product pages they've visited or how they engage. Maybe it's in an abandoned cart or emails opened. I should back up and define zero-party data is data that a customer proactively and willingly shares with you. So contrast that with first-party data, which is where a lot of personalization has been born from, which is tracked passively. So you might look at transaction history of products they've purchased, or the value of a customer based on how many products they've purchased, or maybe geography if you're looking at the shipping address. But a lot of it hasn't been shared directly and willingly by customers until you're able to ask in a quiz or survey or post-purchase survey. And that's really kind of like the void that we're filling with Pre-hook.
That's a really fascinating product. I'd love to hear the kind of nucleus of the idea and how obviously it's grown, and obviously the feedback from customers. And there's a piece there that you mentioned that I'd love to dive in on just at the very beginning here, which is those customers that are on Amazon and on Shopify, which is many. A lot of those customers, we serve as similar types of customers. They're in a similar space, and what they're really keen to do is understand how they can engage with the customer as opposed to engage with just the transaction, which they often find is only the case in Amazon. Is that something you found as well? There's this kind of, we can only really see the transaction in Amazon. There's not much else we can do with it. We can't engage with the customer. We can't own the customer relationship. We can't market to the customer. We can only market to people who are willing to transact. So is that something that you found when you're obviously now engaging with the Shopify merchants? And how much of this journey have you really found that okay, they see that they can know and learn about the customer. They're pivoting maybe their eyes away a little bit from Amazon and much more towards their own kind of owned store experience.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely do see that Amazon intentionally has disintermediated and become a go-between between the merchant and the end customer. So there are workarounds, like, merchants in 2015, you could follow up, get a review, and you could email merchants directly. Amazon has cracked down on that because ultimately it's the customer experience of the Amazon customer that Amazon is focused on, and you don't want to pepper your customers with like lots of, hey, leave a review or whatever. So the workarounds might be like, hey, register your product or get a $10 discount off your next one and register online. And then therefore you can capture an email address and maybe start building your direct relationship. Shopify, of course, is different. The offsetting challenge is, of course, you have to drive your own traffic, whether that's paid or organic or affiliate or whatever. But yeah, the building the direct relationship has changed even in the past year when we've seen iOS 14 roll out, and all of a sudden you can't necessarily track the behavior and remarketing to existing audiences as easily with Apple's privacy changes. And that's probably going to change 2024. Google's going to deprecate third-party cookies in Chrome. So all of a sudden, this necessity to capture emails, capture SMS. SMS is definitely a growing channel in terms of contribution to revenue. And so not only are you building a direct relationship, but you're actually understanding what customers are looking for to guide how you're going to be marketing to them. And so you can take a quick example. One brand that we work with called T-Elixir is an adaptogen brand. So adaptogens are kind of like an ancient medicine, but they're ancient like mushrooms and to help immunity or anxiety or sleeplessness or sore joints. But these products have a variety of benefits, but unfortunately, the modern consumer is not very familiar with the difference between Reiki mushrooms and lion's mane mushrooms. So they use a quiz to help simplify the buying journey. So instead of relying on the customer to take it upon themselves, hey, I'm going to do the research and figure out which product I need based on my symptoms or what benefits I'm trying to get from the product, answering a few easier questions like what problems do you have? What challenges do you have? What does success look like? They were able to simplify the buying process, recommend products, and then feed that directly to Klaviyo. They're using Klaviyo for their email and SMS. So all of a sudden, they're building flows directly around these related products, these challenges, and it's improved their revenue per email by 5x. That's simply based on positioning with increased relevancy and addressing the right product. It all ultimately comes down to segmentation. And now that we're prepping for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that's one area that is very tactical that brands can do is basically enrich their existing list with a quiz. So you don't need to, you could, of course, if you have more time, spin up a quiz and a paid landing page campaign and send the paid traffic to the quiz, and you're capturing leads, you're capturing customer information. But also you could just spin up a quiz and send it to your existing email list. They're completing the quiz, and then all of a sudden, whereas you might not know that much about them, if you have, say, opt in for 15% off, there's no context to what that person's looking for. But once they take the quiz, all of a sudden you have a much richer customer profile that you can build segments around, or you can send relevant product launches or whatever it is. But your consumers are going to be bombarded. Their inboxes are going to be overwhelmed with lots of messages, because a lot of brands are going to be taking advantage of this, because it's buyers have been primed for it. But if you're able to increase the relevancy, then therefore you'd see higher engagement ideally, and then higher conversion rates.
And that's so one of the things that, as you were speaking there, that dawned on me is there must be a brand uplift in terms of the trust, right? So it's almost like the example you gave was fantastic, because immediately I thought of, a medical professional or another expert, where you're not going in to tell the medical professional or expert, I have this problem, give me something. You're going in to say, I have this problem, tell me what I need. And it's exactly the same scenario. And this effectively would have a brand uplift effect, right? Because you're answering some questions, and immediately in that kind of interaction with a brand, your engagement with them is answering some relevant questions to the user, because they're in that space, and obviously the questions are relevant, and then giving them obviously very relevant, very real solutions or options. So that must have a real trust factor. Is that something you've measured, or some brands are measuring?
No, that's a great point. I can't say that I know a brand that's like empirically measured that. But if you think of Robert Cialdini and his book Influence, that's one of the core pillars of influence, is establishing authority and expertise. Hence why if you go into, like, say, a Kiehl's, a skincare brand, they're all wearing, white coats as if they are medical doctors, and maybe they're sales associates, but it's that look. And so that's exactly it. Whether it is something that's a little more clinical, like say a Hims or Hers or Roman, the quiz is almost like an intake form, because it's almost like a lead qualification as well. Yeah. Like, do you have fit the profile of the type of person that our product could help? But yeah, once you're able to gather that, then you absolutely can feed it back to the customer and educate them. And one great example is with pet care brands. So dogs have very predictable health issues as they go along based on what their breed is or what their age is. And so lots of dog brands might ask, what age, how old is your dog, what type of dog, what breed, what health problems they have. And if you're able to triangulate all of this in that scale, of course, that's a little bit of a challenge, but you can tell the customer what problems they are facing or what to expect. And all of a sudden it is imbuing your brand with trust, and you're establishing yourself as an expert and authority in the pet care space. And so that absolutely can have an impact on brand lift and conversion. But, that's the kind of consumer psychology. And I can't put a number to that, but I do agree that that's one of the benefits of a quiz.
Putting a number to that is almost the holy grail, right? I mean, that's we love to measure everything, but certain things can't be. But I guess that even just having repeat interaction in future. Oh, okay, I'll take a different quiz, or this was a positive interaction for me. Then that in itself is probably validation that it's great that somebody's engaged and they're trusting us and they want to answer more questions. Oh, it's really fascinating. I could definitely dive into the recreational psychology part of my interest all day long on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Great. So you've touched on how, personalization is definitely really important for brands, and working with, different tools like these quizzes. And you've also touched on, email marketing and SMS. So my question is, how is it that brands can manage personalization at scale? And do you have some kind of, roadmap for brands that might be starting out on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a question that we get a lot, is like, what questions do I ask, and how should I build a quiz, or what high level framework should I think about with a quiz? And I have a few rules of thumb. One is that you do need to prioritize the customer experience first, that even though data would be helpful for you, ultimately they're taking this because, the marketing trope, what's in it for me? and you have to have some kind of value that you're exchanging for the personal data. And there are studies that show people are willing and happy to share information if there is an expectation of a personalized shopping experience or better customer experience on the other end. So that's critical to think about. But then also after that, okay, what data would be helpful? Of course, you can gather as much data as possible, but like, does it really matter necessarily like where they live if maybe it's a pet brand, or you don't necessarily want to know what their favorite cocktail is or season. There are things that are helpful for you, and I think most helpful in guiding that is how would you segment your list? That might be like often the problems that they're facing, and then their goals, because ultimately as an e-commerce marketer, your goal is to understand what problems they're facing, solve them, and then help them get to their aspirational future self. And that's where you're inserting your brand and your product in there. So if you can understand the challenges and then their goals, I think that's critical. And then maybe it might have to do with their preferences in style. That's where Stitch Fix's quiz is an integral part of their customer experience, because they need to know what style you like, what size you are, what types of clothing you wear, because every box basically is like they make money based on what you purchase. So I think if you can narrow it down to the shortest amount of data and the most, I guess, engaging or entertaining quiz experience, that's really helpful. Knowing that every question will inform the segments or the flows of your customers.
And have you found that there's any brand or any sector where this wouldn't be relevant? Because I was just trying to think there as a side thought. I think this would be relevant to literally every type of brand, no matter the audience. Even I think you mentioned at the beginning, even single item, single SKU type customers would brands rather could easily benefit from this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's funny. Single SKU brands are like the one where it might be a little bit overkill in some sense.
Yeah.
Like if it is like a multivitamin, for example, maybe there are different sizes of the product. Like we have one brand, Better Way Health. They're beta glucan. They have other SKUs, but a lot of it is focused around beta glucan. But they're doing really well with a quiz. Because there are different kind of like applications or use cases and reasons why people are going towards there. Again, it's not a single SKU brand, but I think, if it is a single SKU brand, there's less that like a quiz might be detracting or distracting from the main focus. But yeah, otherwise it's basically, if you can sell a product better, like in person as a sales associate, then ideally your quiz is a stand-in for that. If you've built it out, with enough thought and preparation, that you're taking them down a path specific to, like quiz responses. And then that's where you might want to, if you're building out a quiz, you might want to think about what conditional logic would I be using so that I can dig deeper into certain questions. And then your recommendation and the flows, email and SMS that come after you're taking the quiz. Ideally, it's an evergreen thing that you're building out as a in-person sales associate.
And have you ever done almost a split quiz where it's like you've completed one piece, and like you say, the journey continues through email, SMS, etc. In terms of the communication, but then they come back and almost have a bit of a follow-up thereafter to maybe refine on certain areas?
Yeah, great question, because we actually do, and it's not the follow-up per se, like Stitch Fix or Trade Coffee, Subscription Coffee. They do the follow-up quiz, like, all right, we thought you would like this. Now you had it. How was it? So it's kind of like almost matching the expectation versus the reality. But we do have brands that use it as a post-purchase survey, like how did you hear about us? And so that's beneficial for attribution, because Google Analytics might say that you're getting this person from this channel, but in their mind they might attribute it to a paid channel, whatever. But yeah, that's helpful for closing the loop of acquisition. So that's probably one way where we do see a split quiz, so to speak.
But Google Analytics gets everything right all the time, right?
It depends on how you interpret it, I suppose, right?
It's very much, I think, an inside joke for us marketeers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you've already touched on sort of what goes into a quiz, with the user experience and keeping in mind that, probably you don't want to make your first, quiz with a new customer, 25 questions long. What is sort of, the go-to kind of standard for a quiz to get, enough information without sort of overloading on the questions? Obviously, it's going to vary brand to brand, but just kind of a general template.
Yeah, I think 5 to 7 questions might be good. And again, like what would be helpful? And so you might want to start with like, hey, what's your name? It's always nicer if you can personalize, especially with, say, Prehook, for example. You can kind of use our recall feature like, hey, Nina, based on your quiz responses, we recommend this. And of course, remember, it all goes to Klaviyo or Omnisend or your email service providers, so that you might not have the first person's name until you get an order, or until, unless you ask in your email opt-in form. So that, and yeah, anyway, I think as short as possible, but like 5 to 7 questions. And as you can imagine, Typeform actually has some really good data on this. It's kind of like an asymptotic curve. So as you ask more questions, the completion rate will go down. And so, of course, you can ask lots of questions, but you're just going to get a lower and lower completion rate with every question. It's just the nature of people on the website. And so that means your email opt-in rate or your SMS opt-in rate would probably decline as well. So you always have to balance, like, all right, is this question worth asking, knowing that I might lose percentage points on completion rate and opt-in.
And what's like the timeline to market? Like, because I'd imagine you can, with your service, you can spin something up in minutes and deploy really quickly. Is that about the right assumption?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. It does depend on complexity of a quiz, because it definitely can get very complicated if people have lots of different paths based on conditional logic. But yeah, I mean, we pride ourselves when we set out to build it to make an elegant and simple but robust platform. So we do have a lot of templates for brands to use, just kind of like based on niche, as ideas of like, hey, this might be a helpful question or a data point for you to use. But basically, once you set up your questions, integrating with, we integrate with Klaviyo, Omnisend, Attentive, and PostScript, which are kind of like, because the data is most helpful for communication. So that's email and SMS. That's as easy as copying and pasting your API key, and then publishing it on your stores as simple as copying and pasting. So it is a really quick turnaround from signing up to getting it live. No coding required.
Yeah.
So are there some tactics that you'd recommend for the upcoming holiday season for brands that are looking to leverage quizzes?
Yeah. So for a quiz, I think probably like with a limited window, I would prioritize enriching your existing list. So setting up a quiz on a dedicated landing page. So let's say it's like optally.com/quiz. You're thinking about what would be most important based on what your Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaigns are looking like, maybe, or your product categories or collections, and then asking for those simple questions, and then recommending a product. So on the back end, what you're getting is those questions that you're asking, and then you're going to build it into segments, and then those segments are maybe what help you guide these campaigns will go out to this person, or we'll recommend these products or send these offers. So you're able to kind of like ramp up the relevance in what you're sending. So I think that would probably be the most helpful. And also maybe it's building out your SMS list as well. SMS is a delicate channel because the engagement is so high, and the personal connection is high, and that's where it is even more important to ensure that you're not just sending out blasts, because you risk getting unsubscribes, and of course every send has incremental costs associated with it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear if there's maybe any brands that are doing, obviously it's personalization for the shopper, but during the holiday season, they might be shopping for friends and family. So if there's a way to maybe split out answers for, I'm shopping for my sister and she's into this type of skincare brand, but then it wouldn't, fall into the category of themselves for later on in the year because they're buying for someone else. Have you heard of brands doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great point. Spikeball. Are you guys familiar with Spikeball?
Not personally.
Okay, so Spikeball is a big, I think they call it round net. but it's basically like a little trampoline type thing, and people like you play with 2s or 4s, and people just hit it. It's very popular in Austin and in the States, but it's a social game. It's an inherently social game, and so they're running a pre-hook quiz to kind of like assess expertise level, and they also have an app that they use to kind of like help people find other partners or opponents. And yeah, a gift question is in there. So I'm not sure about the outcome of it and then how they're actually using it, but they do have it because it is a great gift. So that's a great point right now, is to determine who your gift buyers are versus people buying for themselves. And then one other anecdote as well that I heard from a merchant is that in sending their welcome flow, she was able to reduce her unsubscribe rate by 3x by shortening the flow for those gift purchasers. Because somebody looking for a gift is more transactional and not necessarily interested in like the founder story or the brand background or some of these things that are more important if you're buying for yourself. They're more just like, hey, what's the price range? What's the product? And would this be a good fit? So I thought that was interesting. One helpful tidbit so that you're able to kind of like segment and send the right message to the right person.
That's really smart. I really love that. Especially for those products that can really bridge the gap between I'm buying for myself, buying for somebody else.
Yeah.
Go down a different flow, keep it short, succinct. I just need a quick gift for somebody. Just take me there. Like I don't need the rest. Yeah, that's fantastic. And have you found that there are particular sectors or particular segments of e-commerce? You mentioned a few here. I think pet care has come up, and naturally we can understand that a quiz experience is relevant to that kind of audience. It's you can really make that connection. Are there any that have surprised you? Many sectors that are really like, no, this is really beneficial to me, but you were perhaps surprised that it's been particularly beneficial to them.
Yeah. So Helix Sleep has a great quiz. It's a mattress brand, and they have, I think they do retail as well, but they have a direct to consumer e-commerce play as well. But that's interesting because it's not. I don't know the numbers, and it's not a pre-hook quiz either, but I do think, okay, a mattress quiz is interesting because people might not buy mattresses often or might not buy them online as well. So it's a lot of like research. People, every 10 years or so you buy a mattress, but I think that they are doing really interesting things by gathering information in terms of like how many people are looking for the mattress, where are the pain points, on your body, what type of sleeper are you? I think there are 5 questions total. What's your email? And then they recommend a product, kind of like reiterating, here's why we recommend this. And then of course, it goes into their email campaigns. But that's really helpful because ultimately, like the information that you have as a salesperson will help you create a better pitch. And that's exactly how they're doing it. So that's kind of like surprising and a really cool use case of capturing customer data to reuse to improve your marketing.
It's really smart.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting stuff. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time for this episode, but we do like to end all of our shows with one final question. And that is, if our listeners come away from this episode with just one thing that they can implement today that will help them accelerate their online business, what is that one thing?
I think it's capturing customer data, learning more about your customers. So, it's a marketing truism. An email is an evergreen asset that you want to start building your list yesterday. But maybe like point 1A is, what do you have associated with that email address? Because an email address in the void it's good, of course, but it's not as good as it can be. So focus on capturing and enriching your customer data. And this doesn't necessarily need to be a quiz. It could be, say, from support tickets. It could be from questionnaires. Obviously, it probably is from, if you're integrating Klaviyo and Shopify, say, like their activity. But if you can capture just a few of the explicitly the zero-party data of challenges, goals, habits, that can really change the trajectory of your marketing.
Awesome. Great tip. Thank you so much for being on the show. Again, Kevin, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Ina. Thanks, Kevin. That was fun.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Ina.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Optily Radio, Accelerate E-commerce Marketing. We're, of course, brought to you by Optily. the new Shopify app that's revolutionizing how store owners manage their ad spend across Facebook, Instagram, Google, and YouTube. If you're one of the millions who is struggling to know where to spend your marketing dollars for the most impact, try out Optly free for 2 weeks. Watch your returns increase, hours open up in your schedule, and achieve your business goals fast. Learn more at optly.com. We'll catch you back here next time on Optly Radio for more expert tips on growing your online store through marketing. Take care.